Hey everyone, welcome back to a spectacular dive into the world of James Bond. Today, we're shining the spotlight on one of the most fascinating, sometimes divisive, but endlessly entertaining Bond films of the 1980s, A View to a Kill. Whether you're a Roger Moore aficionado, a connoisseur of wild 80s action cinema, or simply curious about the behind-the-scenes intrigue that shaped 07's big-screen adventures, buckle up. We're about to embark on a deep exploration of 30 little-known facts about this 1985 spy romp, revealing everything from production highs and lows to unexpected casting secrets. As you listen, picture yourself on location in Iceland, amid glaciers doubling for Siberia, or imagine that huge airship looming over the Golden Gate Bridge in the thrilling finale. But there's also drama behind the cameras, ranging from David Bowie's decision to walk away from a major villain role to a raging fire on the 707 stage at Pinewood. And let's not forget about the chart-topping Duran Duran soundtrack, which blasted out of radios worldwide and made Bond feel fresher than ever. So settle in, because we're peeling back the curtain on a Bond installment that wrapped up Roger Moore's tenure with stunts, style, and a dash of scandal. Here come 30 facts, each with its own special twist, shaped by the era's bold creative choices, memorable characters, and the unstoppable magic that happens when the iconic 007 theme starts playing. Let's begin. Final bow for Roger Moore. This film truly marked a turning point in James Bond history, as Roger Moore stepped away from the role after a remarkable run that spanned over a decade. While A View to a Kill hit theaters in May 1985, Moore waited until December of that year to make his departure official. At 57, he felt the physical demands of Bond's stunts were increasingly difficult, but there was also his own sense of unease regarding romantic scenes with younger female co-stars. He found it harder and harder to convincingly portray the suave super spy under those circumstances. Still, his 7-film tenure began with the vibrant and voodoo-tinged Live and Let Die in 1973, and between that debut and this swan song, he shaped Bond into a witty, often playful figure. By the time A View to a Kill rolled around, he openly admitted the role demanded more verve than he could offer, and thus ended an era. Fans might debate whether he stayed too long, but there's no denying that Moore, with his debonair humor, helped solidify the franchise's cultural footprint on a global scale. Lois Maxwell's Last Stand. The final outing of Roger Moore also brought a graceful farewell to Lois Maxwell, who had portrayed the endearing Miss Moneypenny since the inception of the cinematic series in Dr. No, 1962. Over the course of 14 Bond films, Maxwell's Moneypenny provided a light-hearted respite from the chaos of 007's missions. Whether trading witty verbal jabs with Sean Connery or exchanging warm banter with Moore, her presence maintained a sense of continuity and camaraderie within MI6. Watching her exit in A View to a Kill felt like saying goodbye to an original cornerstone of the series. In interviews, Maxwell often joked about Moneypenny's unrequited crush on Bond, but she also noted that the character's subtle influence helped keep Bond grounded. Her departure, coupled with Moore's own, was a sign that the series was about to reinvent itself for the coming decades. Fleming title, Original Story. Although the title, A View to a Kill, traces its origins back to Ian Fleming's short story From a View to a Kill, 1960, the narrative concocted for the film is a wholly distinct beast. Bond diehards might recall that The Spy Who Loved Me was the first significant departure from Fleming's original text, making this 1985 release only the second to stray so far. In many ways, this creative liberty allowed the writers to craft a storyline featuring timely technology and industrial intrigue, elements that felt appropriate in the fast-paced, neon-soaked 80s. The notion of microchips shaping global power was especially relevant in an era when personal computers and microprocessors were beginning to transform daily life. The choice to keep just the short story's title while spinning a fresh espionage tale was a clever nod to Bond's literary roots, proving that the franchise could preserve a sense of tradition even as it ventured into new thematic territory. Duran Duran hits #1. For an entire generation raised on MTV, the pairing of James Bond with Duran Duran signaled a perfectly timed culture clash that wound up creating pop music gold. "A View to a Kill," the song, blasted onto radio stations worldwide and claimed the top spot on the Billboard Hot 100, remarkably the only Bond theme to achieve this feat. Meanwhile, it climbed to #2 on the UK charts and garnered a Golden Globe nomination, underlining the track's broad appeal. With its energetic fusion of synth rock and cinematic drama, the single brought a more youthful, dance floor-friendly vibe to the Bond brand. Between the vibrant music video, which cheekily inserted the band into 707-inspired sequences, and the global momentum of Duran Duran, the theme played a massive part in updating Bond's image for an era heavily influenced by video music channels and dynamic pop icons. The David Bowie What If? It's fascinating to imagine David Bowie's otherworldly charisma in the role of Max Zorin. He was, after all, approached first. Yet the iconic singer-songwriter declined, famously quipping that he had no interest in watching a stunt double perform elaborate falls day in, day out. Sting also passed, although fans have speculated how his edgy presence might have shaped the villain. Ultimately, Christopher Walken stepped into Zorin's shoes, and his portrayal still stands as one of the Bond series' most off-kilter. Yet the thought of Bowie reimagining the role with his signature blend of glam and theatricality sparks a what-could-have-been scenario. Some wonder if that would have aligned A View to a Kill even more closely with 80s pop culture trends, but the final casting speaks for itself. Walken gave the film a sense of sinister levity and unhinged brilliance that fit Bond's tradition of arch, memorable foes. Walken's evil edge, Christopher Walken's Max Zorin, rumored to be the product of cruel medical experiments, embodies a frigid temperament and sadistic enjoyment of destruction. Whether he's grinning maniacally amid mayhem or calmly plotting to annihilate Silicon Valley for microchip dominance, Zorin exudes an unsettling aura that's distinctly Walken. Fans quickly drew parallels to earlier Bond megalomaniacs like Auric Goldfinger, noting how Zorin's master plan, submerging an entire region to seize power, echoed the classic Fort Knox sabotage. The brilliance, however, lies in Walken's subtle tics and chilling unpredictability. At times he's flamboyant, at others disturbingly quiet. It's this seesawing between flamboyant showman and cold-blooded sociopath that cements Zorin's place among the franchise's most spine-tingling adversaries. Grace Jones goes method. Standing toe-to-toe with such an intense villain required a henchperson who could command the screen in her own right. Enter Grace Jones as Mayday. Renowned for her fierce physicality and striking aesthetic, Jones threw herself wholeheartedly into the role, reportedly remaining in character when cameras weren't rolling. This approach clashed briefly with Roger Moore's laid-back style, but the friction seemed to spark on-screen chemistry. Mayday is unforgettable, lithe, lethal, and defiantly independent. She isn't content just to be a bodyguard. She's a larger-than-life presence who dwarfs many of the series' previous secondary villains in sheer force of personality. Fans still name-check Mayday when discussing the most iconic Bond antagonists. Dolph Lundgren's first footnote, Dolph Lundgren's big-screen debut, came about almost accidentally. Accompanying then-partner Grace Jones, he found himself in the right place at the right time to fill in as a silent KGB operative during the film's racetrack sequence. Though he had little to do, his imposing frame made him a perfect fit for a cameo. Within a year, he'd rocket to fame as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. It's amusing to look back and see this unstoppable figure cut his teeth in a quick Bond cameo, another example of how the franchise sometimes intersects with wider pop culture destinies. Tanya Roberts' underwritten role, cast as geologist Stacy Sutton, Tanya Roberts brought considerable 80s star power, having appeared in The Beastmaster and as one of the final stars on Charlie's Angels. The film sets her up as a key figure opposing Zoran's corporate greed, yet critics and fans agreed she often ends up floundering in the standard damsel template. Still, Roberts had an undeniable on-screen warmth and tackled the physical aspects of the role gamely, especially during the chaotic mine scenes. For those who enjoy the 80s Bond vibe, her role is often fondly remembered for that signature big hair and her ability to scream with abandon in high-stakes showdowns. She served as a bridge between classic Bond glamour and the decade's flashier leading lady archetypes. Airship rebrand, the imposing blimp seen in A View to a Kill, originally served a more welcoming role, literally, at the 1984 Olympics, with the word "welcome" emblazoned on its hull. Transforming it into the sinister Zoran Industries airship wasn't just a matter of repainting. Practical filming required methodical schedules, as inflating the craft took far longer than the on-screen magic suggests. The production used the airship to create a looming sense of dread. There's something disconcerting about such a large, slow-moving object hovering overhead, especially during the film's climactic battle scenes. Its presence underscored Zoran's arrogance, doubling as a luxurious boardroom and a tool of intimidation. Icelandic Arctic. For the opening set piece, the filmmakers journeyed to Jökulsárlón in Iceland, seeking an untouched glacial environment that could convincingly stand in for a Siberian ice field. The frigid climate tested cast and crew, but it paid off, giving viewers a dramatic visual feast. Roger Moore, in what would be his last Bond opener, navigates the icy terrain to reclaim a stolen microchip, setting off the central microchip plot. The sequence blends classical Bond espionage with a distinctly 80s approach, mixing old-school skiing action with new moves that would soon morph into a snowboarding demonstration. It's the perfect gateway into a film that revels in bridging tradition and novelty. Snowboarding on screen. This point can't be overstated. A View to a Kill helped catapult snowboarding into mainstream view. Back in 1985, the sport was still niche, with pioneers like Tom Sims leading the charge. By showcasing Bond making a daring getaway while strapped to a board, the franchise implicitly endorsed a fresh, youthful energy. Ski double John Eves and board legend Sims combined forces to ensure the sequences looked stylish, yet feasible. It was a subtle sign that Bond was no stranger to tapping into the zeitgeist of extreme sports, appealing to adrenaline-hungry fans and reinforcing 007's status as the ultimate action chameleon. Pinewood Firefight. The 007 stage at Pinewood Studios had become an institution by the mid-80s, housing many of Bond's grand interiors. So, when a fire erupted on June 27, 1984, courtesy of leftover petrol canisters from Ridley Scott's fantasy film Legend, it spelled near disaster. The devastation forced Eon Productions to scramble, but within a month they rebuilt and redubbed it the Albert R. Broccoli 007 stage. This rapid turnaround exemplifies the unstoppable momentum of the Bond machine. Even colossal setbacks couldn't derail production. Scenes that demanded large indoor sets had to be reimagined or delayed, yet the end result remained polished, testimony to the crew's resourcefulness and the franchise's formidable infrastructure. Moore drives a fire truck, One of the film's lighter sequences sees Bond commandeering a fire truck in San Francisco, racing against time while evading the police. The behind-the-scenes twist is that the official stunt driver wasn't tall enough to manage the rear section. In steps Roger Moore, leveraging his pre-Hollywood experience as a truck driver to pull off these comedic chase scenes. While the tone is playful, it's worth noting how it also highlights Moore's everyman appeal. Despite being Bond, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. The result is a vibrant sequence that blends comedic mishaps, like the swiveling ladder, with the typical action beats audiences crave. Eiffel Tower Leap. The Eiffel Tower has appeared in countless films, but rarely in such a dramatic stunt. Mayday's spectacular parachute jump from the tower was undertaken by skydiving legend B.J. Worth, who meticulously rehearsed with 22 balloon jumps. Convincing Paris officials to allow it required negotiations, but the stunt's success gave A View to a Kill one of its most iconic visuals. There's a surreal thrill in seeing this globally recognized landmark framed against the stark drama of a cinematic free-fall, and it sets Mayday apart as an immediately formidable adversary for Bond. A San Francisco debut. Traditionally, Bond premieres in London have been a hallmark of the series, but A View to a Kill bucked that trend by unveiling first at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco on May 22, 1985. The decision celebrated the city's starring role in the movie, from the fire truck chase to the Golden Gate Bridge finale. Only after the star-spangled launch did the team cross the Atlantic for the June 12th UK Gala at the Odeon Leicester Square. It was a nod to Bond's expanding global reach in the 80s. No longer confined to British red carpets, the series embraced its role as an international cinematic phenomenon. Numbers game. On paper, $30 million might not sound modest, but in Bond terms, it was a tight budget for a film boasting high-octane stunts across multiple continents. All the same, A View to a Kill recouped about $152.4 million worldwide, proving the unstoppable brand power of 007. Even though summer 1985 was crowded with blockbuster contenders like Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Bond still stood firm, charming audiences with exotic locales and outlandish villains. The robust North American gross of $50.3 million and £8.1 million in the UK underscored the series' loyal following, who turned out to see Moore's final mission. Love it or hate it, critics didn't go easy on A View to a Kill, referencing the film's 37% Rotten Tomatoes rating and pinpointing Moore's visible age or the occasionally incoherent script. Yet it's also a Bond entry that has gained a spirited fan base who argue it's underrated. Look to social media platform X, where defenders cite Christopher Walken's performance and Grace Jones's unforgettable May Day as reasons the film remains entertaining decades later. Some fans appreciate it precisely because it straddles the line between camp and high-octane action, capturing the unrepentant sense of fun that embodies the Moore-era Bond. Golden Echoes. The blueprint for Zorin's scheme conjures immediate flashbacks to Goldfinger's plan. While Goldfinger targeted Fort Knox to manipulate gold prices, Zorin fixates on Silicon Valley's microchip empire. Both villains meticulously craft massive scale models and rely on catastrophic force to disrupt a major economic resource, hoping the ensuing chaos will multiply their own profits. This connection to Goldfinger cements a sense of legacy, illustrating how each era's Bond villain tries to top the last in ambition and cunning. For viewers, it's a neat callback to the franchise's storied past, reworked to fit the tech-driven obsessions of the 1980s. The Zorin disclaimer: blink and you'll miss it, but there's a small legal note preceding the gun barrel sequence, clarifying that any similarity to real businesses named Zorin is unintentional. After discovering that a real company named Zoran existed, Eon Productions and United Artists wanted to protect themselves from trademark issues. Such disclaimers might seem trivial, but in the world of global entertainment, every detail matters, especially when you're crafting a fictional corporate empire that commits high-profile crimes on screen. Snipped in Paris. Many Bond devotees enjoy hunting for missing scenes, and here's a notable one. Bond briefly landing in a Paris jail after chasing Mayday off the Eiffel Tower. M then arrives to bail him out, providing comedic interplay. While the snippet can be found on DVD extras, the filmmakers trimmed it for pacing. This sacrifice in final editing was intended to keep the film's momentum, reinforcing that the creative process behind Bond movies often involves tough choices. Comedic detours might be amusing, but not at the cost of narrative drive. Enter Patrick Macnee. Known to British audiences for his debonair role in The Avengers, Patrick Macnee joined A View to a Kill as Sir Godfrey Tibbett, posing as Bond's chauffeur at Zoran's estate. Macnee brought a light comedic touch, and his on-screen chemistry with Moore reflected their real-life friendship. Tragically, Tibbett meets an early demise at Mayday's hands, a moment that reminded viewers Bond's missions can exact a steep toll on his allies. For fans of 60s British television, seeing Macnee share the screen with Moore was a welcome mini-reunion of two iconic pop culture figures. Cheating at the tracks. Perhaps no sequence better captures Zoran's monstrous ambition than the racecourse scenes, filmed at the storied Royal Ascot. The film depicts him rigging races via concealed microchips implanted in his horses, fusing the old-world elegance of thoroughbred racing with cutting-edge espionage. It also tapped real-world anxiety over cheating in professional sports, be it doping or illegal enhancements, thus grounding the movie's flamboyance in contemporary concerns. By situating high-tech sabotage amidst the pomp of Ascot, the film showcased Bond's knack for weaving modern tension into classic social settings. Château de Chantilly. With about 100 costumed extras filling the lush grounds, the Château de Chantilly doubled as Zoran's lavish French retreat. This choice saved the filmmakers from constructing an enormous set and gave the production genuine European grandeur. The estate's ornate architecture and manicured gardens allowed for opulent scenes that highlighted the scale of Zoran's wealth. Meanwhile, behind those fancy exteriors lurked horse-breeding secrets and under-the-table deals, encapsulating the fusion of luxury and treachery that forms the backbone of many Bond narratives. Golden Gate Finale. Few Bond climaxes are as visually imposing as the showdown atop San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. Shooting with a real blimp and partial set pieces, the stunt team dangled precariously to replicate the stomach-dropping sense of height. The brisk winds and swirling fog of the Bay Area added to the tension, weaving authentic environmental factors into the film's tapestry. It's a classic moment where the 007 formula shines, death-defying stunts, an iconic landmark, and a final confrontation that teeters, literally, on the brink of catastrophe. The age factor. By the mid-'80s, the contrast between Bond's strenuous assignments and Roger Moore's more relaxed style became increasingly apparent. Although Moore retained his tongue-in-cheek charm, heavy reliance on stunt doubles was unavoidable. Scenes with Tanya Roberts accentuated the nearly 30-year age gap, making certain romantic moments feel uncomfortable both for audiences and Moore himself, who called it creepy. While some fans celebrate his comedic approach to the role, A View to a Kill confirmed that the series needed a fresher dynamic, foreshadowing Timothy Dalton's darker, more physical portrayal that would soon follow. Under budget. Astonishingly, despite traveling the globe and orchestrating large-scale stunts, not to mention the Pinewood stage fire, the production managed to wrap up $5 million under the $35 million target. It's a noteworthy feat in an industry where unexpected setbacks often bloat costs. The efficiency is testament to decades of Bond crew experience, resourceful line producers, and a well-honed production pipeline. Fiscally speaking, A View to a Kill thus stands out as a success story, a case study in how major franchises can adapt and thrive even when faced with significant logistical hurdles. Mary Stevan returns. Keen-eyed viewers might spot Mary Stevan, Miss World 1977, and a cameo actor in Octopussy, reappearing as Bond's co-pilot Kimberly Jones during the Arctic opening. She embodies the classic Bond girl cameo, a hallmark of the franchise's fondness for peppering small roles with former pageant winners, models, or returning faces from prior films. It's these fleeting appearances that delight completists, adding another layer of continuity for those who relish identifying subtle crossovers and repeated cameo performers throughout 07's cinematic history. A flash of animation. The world of Bond, especially in the 80s, championed in-camera effects whenever possible, making the brief optically animated gun flare in the film's opening scene a curious exception. It blinks by quickly, but dedicated fans on social media have freeze-framed the moment, dissecting it with the fervor of film historians. It underscores how A View to a Kill was crafted during a transitional era. Analog ingenuity still ruled, but nascent digital or optical enhancements were creeping in, hinting at the next wave of movie-making possibilities. Superman Syndrome. The resemblance between Zorin's plan to sink California for real estate gain and Lex Luthor's scheme in Superman, 1978, didn't go unnoticed. Both revolve around catastrophic reshaping of the coastline to create or capitalize on a sudden land value jackpot. While Bond's franchise typically grounds such schemes in espionage and high-tech sabotage, the comedic grandiosity links it firmly to a tradition of larger-than-life villainy. Such parallels might feel over the top, but that same theatrical swagger has always been part of Bond's charm, especially in the more flamboyant chapters of the series' storied run. These 30 facts weave together the flair, drama, and behind-the-scenes hustle that define A View to a Kill. With its glitzy Duran Duran theme, colossal stunts from the Eiffel Tower to the Golden Gate, and a final performance from Roger Moore that's equal parts charming and bittersweet, the film stands as a vivid time capsule of Bond in the mid-80s. It might not top every fan's list, but it closed out Moore's tenure in unforgettable style, complete with psychotic villains, epic set pieces, and a last burst of that classic 07 cool. From the introduction of snowboarding to the end of an iconic leading duo, it represents a franchise in transition. One foot in the breezy, sometimes campy past, the other inching toward the harder-edged stories and younger actors that would define Bond's future. Whether you see it as a flawed gem or a delicious slice of 80s nostalgia, A View to a Kill remains an essential chapter in the sprawling saga of the world's most famous secret agent.